Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bosch. The number of clean diesel models in North America will double by 2014. Bosch Clean Diesel. Good, clean, fun. Bridgestone. Your journey, our passion. Dow Automotive Systems. Improving durability and increasing design flexibility with Betamate structural adhesives at dowbetamate.com. And by the 2013 Hyundai Sonata. Learn more at HyundaiSonata.com.
Hello again, and thank you for joining us. This is Autoline Daily for Wednesday, August 8th, 2012. I'm Peter DiLorenzo, the auto extremist, bringing you the latest news and the freshest opinion from the world of cars. Let's get rolling. The next generation Honda Accord is on its way. If you were hoping for something a little visionary for a change, you're going to be sorely disappointed. On the other hand, if you were looking for something Sonata-esque, then the 2013 version of the Accord might just be your speed. Maybe the interior receives some major work, but the exterior, in either coupe or sedan guise, is bland-tastic with a capital B. The company describes it as expressive and sophisticated, calling it the most sculpted and the most dynamic Accord yet. Whatever. From the alternative fuel beat, the Detroit Free Press reports Toyota plans to sell a fuel cell-powered vehicle in 2015. It would be available to both retail and commercial customers. The company is already the hybrid leader, so it's understandable they'd want to be out in front of the next technological development, even if it is pie in the sky. Distribution would likely be limited to California and a handful of other states with hydrogen refueling infrastructures and enough group hugs to go around. My friend John McElroy is still up in Traverse City, Michigan, covering the annual management briefing seminars. With another MBS update, here he is.
Day 2 at the management briefing seminars was really kind of the analyst day, and we got some very interesting analysis and insight from a number of people who do this kind of forecasting. Jeff Schuster, the head of forecasting at J.D. Power, says that by 2018, Volkswagen's not going to be number one in the world. He's predicting that is going to be Toyota, followed by Volkswagen. He sees, interestingly, Renault-Nissan in the third spot. General Motors only comes in fourth, and the Hyundai Group coming into fifth spot. Meanwhile, Anthony Pratt at Polk says that the longer people own cars, the less loyal they become to that brand. And remember, cars are the oldest that they've ever been in the American market now. The average car is over 11 years old. Plus, because people are holding on to cars longer, he says the average car buyer will only buy 9 cars in their lifetime instead of the 12 that they had been buying, and that's obviously going to have an impact on the industry. Meanwhile, Paul Taylor, the chief economist at the National Automotive Dealers Association, pointed out that small car sales are actually slowing down this year. The fastest growing segments go to mid-size cars, vans, minivans, and pickup trucks. And of course, who would have expected that small car sales might be slowing down right now? Anyway, those are some of the highlights from today's management briefing seminars.
Thanks, John. We look forward to more updates. It's hard enough being an automotive supplier. It's doubly difficult being a minority supplier. To make things a little easier for them, 2 businesses have just teamed up to create a new company called Diversity Connections LLC. This joint venture is designed to help out the management of minority-owned suppliers. You know, the auto industry is always on the lookout for good minority-owned suppliers, and this could give them a much-needed boost. Bet you thought Autoline Daily would be a safe haven from Olympic coverage, but not today. Mini has deployed a fleet of quarter-scale radio-controlled versions of their Cooper hatchback to retrieve items like javelins from Olympic throwing events. Here we see a judge loading a discus into one of the cars. What's interesting is the Olympic Committee does not allow advertising at events, and somehow driving a tiny car around the infield isn't advertising? Who knew? The second annual Autoline After Hours Fantasy Draft went down a few weeks ago. Which contestant carried the day? Stick around to find out.
Clean diesel models in North America will double by 2014. Why? Higher take rates, lower cost of ownership, longer range and better fuel mileage, lower CO2 emissions. Clean diesel, good, economical, functional. Bosch, invented for life.
So which of the 5 contestants that competed in this year's Autoline After Hours Fantasy Draft took the checkered flag? Well, our official draft analysts, Scott Burgess from AOL Autos and Mark Phelan of the Detroit Free Press, have reached a verdict.
So as a loyal Autoline enthusiast, you know that a couple weeks ago we did our second annual After Hours Fantasy Draft. We brought in about 5 automotive journalists, and they each had to build their own fictitious auto company, and then they had to select different automotive executives to run those companies. So on our list we had John McElroy, of course, we had Jim Hall from 2953 Analytics, Todd Lassa of Motor Trend, Michelle Krebs, Edmunds.com, and Drew Winter from Ward's Auto. Beyond that, we also had a war room where we were staffed with Mark Phelan from the Detroit Free Press and Scott Burgess from AOL Autos. They were our draft analysts, our experts that were dissecting every move that our contestants made, and they are joining me on Skype right now. How are you guys doing?
Real good, thanks.
Yeah. Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, glad you guys could join me this afternoon. So, a lot of great picks this year. Any surprises? Mark, let's start with you. Any surprises on the list this year for the 2012 draft?
There were lots of surprises, and the biggest one for me came in the very first round when Michelle Krebs picked Larry Page, who is Google's chief of autonomous driving. I mean, that's an area that a lot of people don't want to think about. Some real car enthusiasts actually are hostile to the idea, but we're moving in the direction of cars that drive themselves. He knows more about it than anybody else. I think that was a really smart, forward-thinking choice.
Yeah. And what about you, Scott? Any standouts? I know we had a couple fictitious characters on the list as well, but standouts from you?
It was very interesting. There was Larry Page is a good example. I thought it was interesting that a number of people took people outside of the auto industry. I see that as being really healthy for the auto industry. And we look at what's happened at Ford Motor Company in the last couple of years. A lot of that has been tied to Alan Mulally, who's not from the auto industry. And as we expand our manufacturing, I think that's going to be essential.
Yeah, just glancing at the list, we had Jay-Z, Warren Buffett, and my favorite pick, Don Draper, fictitious character even. How's that for out-of-the-box thinking? I think Drew Winter picked Don Draper, if I remember correctly. But what's your feel this year versus last year for the draft? A little better energy this year or what?
I thought it was fascinating, both because I think we had more people playing this year, but also the fact that it was broken down so that you had to choose people in a number of different categories. You had to pick somebody who was retired, somebody who was under 40, someone who was dead, someone who belonged to a minority, a woman. And I had no idea going in if that would make for a better or worse draft. But looking at the choices, I think people actually made better choices with being directed to think about all these different types of groups.
Absolutely.
I would add to that I thought Mark and I did a really fabulous job. And I thought it was a great idea to bring Tiffany in as well, because that kept us from being bored while they were picking people.
Absolutely. We had some outside talent come in to help us out. Some of the categories you mentioned, Mark, we had dead executives. You had to have a female executive, executive younger than 40, minority, of course, retired, and a wild card, so you could pick anybody you want. Interesting, though, nobody hit 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. Nobody did a female executive that was retired and deceased, or something like that. So maybe next year we'll get into that. But for the 2012 draft, who do you guys think won? Scott, why don't we start with you on this round? Who was the winner at the end of the day?
I really think that almost every one of the teams would have been a great car company. You had legendary people like Bill Mitchell, and you had current people that are up and coming stars like Ralph Gilles. There's any one of these. I mean, these are all stars, but. My pick, and Mark and I both talked about it, is Michelle Krebs' team. From top to bottom, it is an uber fabulous auto executive team.
Yeah, and you agree with Scott, Mark?
Absolutely. I mean, we started off with that surprising pick of Larry Page. I mean, for her, dead person, she picked Sergio Pininfarina. So you don't even have to wonder, could he still operate today? He was, in charge of designing vehicles a year ago. I mean, this is the guy responsible for virtually every Ferrari. What company wouldn't pick him? Barb Samardzic of Ford, John Krafchick of Hyundai. I mean, she put together a team that was really deep in talent with a lot of product knowledge.
Yeah. That sounds like a winning team to me, but one person was missing from the list here. I don't see Bob Nardelli.
Well, we may have to have a new category for him next year, too. What would you call that category?
I prefer not to say. But sounds like Michelle Krebs carried the day for the 2012 After Hours draft. So good stuff, guys. Thanks for your help. We do hope you join us again next year for the 2013 draft, and it was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Of course, if you missed the After Hours Fantasy Draft, you can watch the recorded version at autoline.tv. If you haven't seen it, it's new to you. And that's it for today's show. Thanks for your time. Again, I'm Peter DiLorenzo, the Auto Extremist, and weirdly enough, I'll see you tomorrow.